Hey team, how we doing? This is Coach Dana Cavalea checking in with you today. Want to come on and talk a little bit today about mentality, mindset. What makes you feel good some days and what makes you feel frustrated other days? How do you break out of that funk that you're in? If you're constantly feeling down and frustrated, what's causing it? And this is something that I'm fascinated with, because as somebody that studies human performance day in and day out, I tend to use myself as my guinea pig. As somebody that was an athlete, still considers himself one. As somebody that seeks optimal performance in life, in business, I've been fascinated with the question, how can I feel great every single day? Followed by the other question, why don't I feel great every day on the days that I don't feel great? And I've been on a quest to find those answers. And after you go to the doctor and you get your blood work done and everything comes back fantastic and you go on the scale and that's good and physically you're good, through deductive reasoning, you have to look towards your mindset. You have to look inside. You have to work to understand what's going on with you each and every day. What's going on with those patterns? What's going on with those thoughts? What's happening upstairs? And how is that contributing to how you feel? Some days you feel great, some days you feel bad. Well, if you're a healthy person, you too can take a look and say, you know what? It's probably coming from what I think about. And I heard this from someone, I forgot who it was, but it said, you are what you think about all day long. If you think about good, happy, positive things, you'll probably be good, happy, and positive. If you think about bad, negative, and fearful things, you'll probably be negative and fearful in your day-to-day. And that's not what we want, because we want to talk about performance optimization. How are we going to optimize your performance in sports, life, and business? If you're a coach, we want to make you a great coach. If you're a businessman, we want to take your game to the next level. An entrepreneur, we want to take your company to the next level. If you're an athlete, how could you take your day-to-day performance to the next level? That's really what it's all about. How can we get you to the next place? And through my research, I found that there's a concept called the gap. And the gap is the vision that you have for yourself and where you should be relative to where you actually are. That gap between where you are and where you feel you should be is where all the problems start. That's where the negativity starts in terms of performance, but also in terms of you feeling like crap day in and day out. So use yourself the example of a hitter, right? Let's say you're a baseball player and you feel that you should be a 350 to 400 point hitter in regards to your average, but you're really hitting 280. That gap, that 70 plus point gap, is where your problems are going to start, because you're going to try to close that gap. You're going to try to force yourself to close that gap. It's the same thing in business, right? You set this goal for this quarter, or you may set quarter after quarter growth at 25%. But if you're only clicking at 10% growth per quarter, that gap between 10 and 25 is what's going to cause you all of your angst and your stress and your anxiety. And we could look at our life in so many different ways, right? They say keeping up with the Joneses. If you feel that you should be at a certain income level and you're not. You should be living in a certain size house and you're not. You should be living on a certain street and you're not. Driving this versus that, but you're not. That gap is where your problems start. But the good news is they also end there. Because if we can restructure our story as to what we should be and think we should be, and get more real, get more honest with ourselves, and reset ourselves, we can also create positives from reframing and redefining that gap, right? So I talk a lot about the concept of reframing. Closing the gap and reframing are very similar. Instead of saying I want to do 25%, we need to figure out how we can look at 10% growth and elevation as a really positive thing. And if we do 10% over time, eventually that goal that we set for ourselves at 25% growth, we're going to blow right through that. But it's reframing it and looking at it differently. It's saying, hey, I live here. I want to live there, but the money I save by living here will allow me to get there and be stress-free. So those sort of reframing concepts are super important to close the gap. And when you close that gap, what's going to happen is you're going to start to feel better day after day, and then you're going to head into the loop. I feel good, therefore I get more done, I produce, I have success. I feel good, I produce, therefore I have success. And now you're on an optimized performance loop, and that's where we want to get you. So if we can adjust our self-imposed expectations, then we can start to close that gap. And if we could start to define what a win is for ourselves, or redefine what a win is for ourselves, we're going to see some big changes in our game. And as somebody that's a hard charging type A, high expectation guy like myself, Coach Dana Cavalea, what I realized is I don't celebrate any of my victories along the way. And when I don't celebrate my victories, over time you start to think you've never had any, right? So what I've tried to do is really sit back and say, what have I done well today? What did I achieve today? Because if we're making progress every single day and we're getting things done and we're taking a step closer towards where we want to go and towards who we should be, over time, that's going to lead to our winning. That's going to lead to championship performances. That's going to lead toward and to you becoming a true champion in whatever you decide to do. So it's not what we do today that is going to be that home run, but it's what we do day in and day out and over time. The great motivational speaker, Tony Robbins, he has a line that I'm definitely going to quote him on and not take credit for it. He says, we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we completely underestimate what we could do in a decade. And it's about chopping away. Chop, 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 chop. If you're an athlete, don't overestimate what you can do in a game and underestimate what you could do over the course of a season. I used to love watching Derek Jeter play because he never got crazy over anything. He could be in an 0 for 21 slump and say, you know what, I'm that much closer to a hit. And he never got crazy because he understood the law of averages. And it wasn't about what he did over the course of that game or that month, but he had 6 months to prove what type of a player he really is. And the same goes for you, whether you're an athlete, again, a businessman, whatever it is that you engage in, play the long game. Play the long game. Yeah, we want to win today, but we could win in our head. We can win by celebrating the little victories. Whether it's paying something off or, going 1 for 3 in a game, or moving a runner over in a game, or making a big sale. All of that. We need to reward ourselves with those little victories. And if we miss on that, we're going to miss on a lot of other things. So, bringing today's lesson all the way together, we got to close the gap. We need to ditch the expectations that we set for ourselves that are totally high and borderline unreasonable. And we need to understand when we're feeling frustrated and we're feeling that angst, it's only because of the gap. Don't look any deeper than that. So you have to recalibrate and restructure and reframe, close the gap, and get real with yourself. And if you focus on getting things done and doing, chopping away at that tree like I always talk about, small axe, big tree, chop, chop, chop every day. Even if you knock just a little bit of bark off, you're going to make progress towards knocking that oak tree down. So think about it. Think about how you can apply that to your life. Again, this is what champions do. This is what it takes to be a high performer. You got to really evaluate and see where we're at and what we're doing, where we're coming up short, and pivot. That's what the greats do. So I hope you enjoyed that lesson. If you enjoyed it, share it. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. In addition, I have a book coming out later this spring, which I'm really excited about. We're doing the final edits now, picking a cover that'll be inspirational and motivational. It's going to be called Becoming a Champion in Sports, Business, and Life. Or Life, Sports, and Business. We're still deciding on that. But I hope you guys get a chance to get your hands on it. And like I said, my passion in life is coaching people, giving my perspectives on things. And it's all really based on my journey and what I go through and went through. And my attempt to help others navigate the water with a speedboat rather than a rowboat. So I hope you enjoy. If you like this episode, please share it. And I look forward to seeing you guys real soon. This is Coach Dana Cavalea signing out. See ya.